The day before my coronation, my mother suddenly wanted to remove me from the family lineage. She claimed I was the daughter of a slave girl, and that Ruth, the servant who had always attended to me, was the Grand Duke estate's eldest daughter. I sought help from my father, who had always doted on me, but received only a contemptuous look. How could I have father-daughter sentiments with the daughter of a slave girl? I went to see Leo, my childhood sweetheart, Your Majesty, to ask him to stand up for me, but was turned away. Turning around, I saw Ruby's sedan chair entering the Winter Palace, and Your Majesty said with deep affection, "Ruby, no one can stop you from becoming my wife now." Afraid that I would affect Ruby's enter the palace, become a court lady, my mother ordered my legs to be broken and threw me onto the streets to beg. A night of torrential rain caused me, already seriously injured, to develop a high fever. Struggling for breath, I lay on the ground, watching the face reflected in the rain that resembled my mother's by 5 parts. I couldn't understand how Ruby could be my mother's biological daughter. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my mother identified my identity. I was reborn on the day my mother identified me as the daughter of a slave. At this moment, the boxes of treasure bestowed by the one in the palace were being sent into the Grand Duke estate like flowing water. But I felt as if struck by lightning, without the slightest hint of joy on my face. The maids in the courtyard were gathered around these gifts, chattering non-stop. I immediately noticed Ruth in the corner with a broom. She didn't step forward, but silently swept and peeked from the side. Biting her lip, her eyes were full of unwillingness and jealousy. A yard keeper like Ruby wouldn't even be spoken to by the maids who served me closely on weekdays. Yet it was such an inconspicuous sweeper. My legs trembled slightly. The pain of my legs being broken by my mother was like maggots gnawing at my bones. Because this evening, my mother, who had always loved me, was about to break into my courtyard with the clansmen. My mother, who had always been kind and gentle, had a fierce look between her brows, pointed at my nose and scolded, "This is the daughter of a slave. Who has been replacing my own daughter's identity for more than 10 years. Elders of the clan. Today, I will purify the family." My mother held a thin rod and struck me fiercely. The struck area quickly turned purple, which was enough to show my mother's ruthlessness. I had been pampered since I was a child, and my parents had protected even a strand of my hair. Seeing such a completely unfamiliar mother, I endured the pain and said anxiously, "Mother. What are you talking about? I'm going to enter the palace, become a court lady, tomorrow. How could I not be your own daughter?" My mother stopped her hand when she heard this, and I breathed a sigh of relief, wanting to figure out the cause and effect. But I saw a cold look in my mother's eyes, and she turned to the clan elders and said loudly, "Everyone has seen it, this slave girl is still dreaming of marry into royalty/become a queen. If this slave girl succeeds, not only the Grand Duke estate, but even the royal dignity will be swept away. Today, in the name of the Duchess of the Grand Duke estate, I announce that Jennifer is no longer the young lady of the Grand Duke estate, and her name will be expulsion from the family lineage." Facing the contemptuous, surprised, sarcastic, and gloating eyes of the maids and clan elders. What pained me even more was the undisguised hatred and disgust in my once loving mother's eyes when she looked at me. Disregarding the demeanor of a high-ranking lady, disregarding the dignity and etiquette she had maintained for many years, she spat at me, calling me a slave girl with every breath. It was as if I was her most hated enemy in the world. I really didn't expect that my mother, who had regarded me as the apple of her eye for 16 years, actually hated me. Unable to suppress the pain in my heart, I threw myself at her knees, trying to act like the affectionate spoiled child I had always been. But this time, I sobbed uncontrollably, "Mother, I am your daughter." When my mother saw me approaching, she kicked me in the chest without hesitation. "Shut up, you are the daughter of a slave." Her loving gaze was cast on Ruth, the yard keeper sweeping in the corner, her eyes filled with tears. "The real blue blood of the Grand Duke estate has been serving this slave girl for 16 years. Ruth." In my memory, I called out Ruth's name word by word. Ruth, who was still a sweeping servant, walked out of the corner cautiously and fearfully with thick bangs covering her face. "What are your orders, miss?" Although there were many servants in the yard, I had some impression of her. She first worked in the kitchen, but because she was young and clumsy, she was often bullied and ostracized. One day, because she was lazy and didn't watch the fire, she burned the pot and almost caused a fire. The people in the kitchen beat her badly. I thought she was a little girl the same age as me, so I transferred her to the yard to be a sweeping yard keeper. How could I have thought that my momentary kindness would be seen as humiliation in her eyes? That day, Ruth was held in my mother's arms, and she said pitifully, "Me? Your daughter? The young lady of the Grand Duke estate? How could that be? I'm just the most inconspicuous sweeping yard keeper in the Mrs. Yard, and everyone here can bully me." My mother listened and shed tears of heartache. "You are not a yard keeper, you are the blue blood of the Grand Duke estate. From now on, I'll see who dares to bully you." Watching the scene of motherly love and filial piety, I couldn't help but say, "If you are not satisfied with the work arranged for you by the manager, you can." But my mother's slap landed heavily on my face the next moment. "Shut up. Who allowed you, a slave girl, to talk to Ruth like that? Still think you are the young lady of the Grand Duke estate?" My face immediately swelled up, and the clan elder who had watched me grow up couldn't bear it and said, "Madam, how can you be sure that Jennifer is not your own daughter?" Of course I have conclusive evidence. My own daughter has a small bluish-purple birthmark on her forehead. My mother lifted Ruth's bangs, and a small bluish-purple birthmark appeared in front of everyone. Only Ruth and I were left in the room. "Miss, I am not responsible for the things in your room." I didn't listen to her nonsense, approached her, and unceremoniously lifted her heavy bangs. There was indeed a birthmark that I didn't have. Looking at her timid appearance, I got straight to the point. "You knew what was going to happen today, didn't you?" A hint of doubt flashed in Ruth's eyes. "What are you talking about, miss? This servant doesn't understand a bit." I didn't let go of any trace of emotion revealed in her eyes, and still called out word by word, "Ruth." She subconsciously dodged her eyes, but I still saw the smugness mixed with doubt in her eyes. I smiled and mocked, "A rat in the gutter, it must have taken a lot of effort to climb to the top." Ruth's expression changed, and her face darkened. "Jennifer, are you introducing yourself?" As I expected, Ruth already knew what would happen today, and also knew her own identity. She seemed to not intend to pretend anymore after I exposed her. Perhaps she thought she had the upper hand. Ruth walked step by step to the middle of the room, where the Queen's wedding dress was placed. The wedding gown that hundreds of weavers had rushed to make in half a year was dazzling. Ruth touched the delicate wedding gown, revealing her determined ambition. "The identity of the young lady of the Grand Duke estate is mine, and the position of Queen will also be mine." Ruth looked at me, with a smug look on her face. "The wedding gown should have been kept by the Royal Wardrobe Department and sent here on the day of the coronation/wedding ceremony. Do you know why this set is in your room?" "That's because Your Majesty prepared it for me. He wanted me to see it in advance." Ruth personally admitted that she and Leo had been having an affair for a long time. Even Leo knew what would happen today. In my previous life, I was still happily waiting to marry Leo. Step by step, I fell into such a huge scheme without realizing it. Back then, all the princes wanted to get the help of the Grand Duke estate, but only Leo was about the same age as me and treated me the most kindly. He would go to the outskirts of the capital city to pick a spring flowers for me despite the hard work. He would mischievously climb over the wall of the Grand Duke estate just to see me. He said, "Others treat you as Jennifer, but I only treat you as Jennifer. Regardless of family status, regardless of identity, even if you are just a commoner, you are still the one I love." The love words of young men are the most sincere and can deceive people the most. But when I really lost my family status and identity, I couldn't even enter the gate of the Winter Palace. The last straw I thought I could grasp, he completely ignored it and rejected me with various excuses just now. He came out of the palace gate to welcome Ruby. "Ruby, no one can stop you from becoming my wife now." Ruth looked at me outside the threshold and smiled mockingly. "Actually, Your Majesty wanted to climb over the wall to see not you, Jennifer, but that inconspicuous sweeping servant in your yard. He sent you so many spring flowers because you would share them with the people in the yard, and you would also share one with me." What's so great about being the young lady of the Grand Duke estate for 16 years? Actually, you never won against me from the beginning. Listening to Ruth's ridicule and looking at Leo's dodging eyes, I finally understood what the royal eunuch meant when he euphemistically advised me just now. The late emperor once designated the eldest daughter of the prosperous Grand Duke estate as the future queen. Even if your majesty has some affection for you, he cannot violate the late emperor's will. Leo's pair of peach blossom eyes are really affectionate to everyone. Looking at the wedding gown in front of me, I pulled out a sharp hairpin. Seeing my actions, Ruby took a few steps back in fright. Are you crazy? If you dare to kill me. The hairpin tore the gorgeous wedding gown, and I threw it aside casually. Looking at the frightened Ruby, I said meaningfully, you haven't been in contact with many things before. I'm afraid you don't know that the more gorgeous something is, the easier it is to destroy. Ruby picked up the wedding gown with heartache. Do you know how precious this wedding gown is? What will I wear tomorrow if you ruin it? I pushed her away and snatched the wedding gown back from her. This is my wedding gown, you don't need to worry about it. Ruth's jealous eyes were like needles stabbing at me. She shouted, Your Majesty doesn't love you at all. What's more, after today you will be the daughter of a slave. How dare you covet the position of queen? I raised my eyebrows, opened the door, and ordered the servants in the yard who had already heard some movement. What are you still standing there for? She's already crazy like this. Drag her down. Slap her 50 times and lock her in the barn to let her calm down. The maids quickly covered Ruth's mouth and dragged her down while she was still in a daze. Ruth didn't know where she got the strength from. She bit a maid's hand hard, and took the opportunity to shout, I'll see how long you can be proud of yourself. Someone slapped Ruth immediately and used a coarse cloth to seal her mouth tightly. Among them, someone whispered, What are you thinking? A little sweeping servant dares to speak wildly and offend the miss. I looked down at Ruby, who could only wail, and said, Say less, don't provoke me to change my mind and beat you to death on the spot. What do you care how long I'm proud of myself? At least now, I'm the master and you're the servant. You've been a servant for 16 years, haven't you understood it yet? The Ruby on the ground was both afraid and angry, but before she could react, she was dragged away. Looking at the slightly westward slanting sun, I held the wedding gown and ordered, Prepare the sedan chair. Silk Road Designs was the largest embroidery workshop in Capital City, and the embroidery skills of the owner were extraordinary. Not even princes and nobles could invite him. But after I took out the wedding gown and made a request, the owner showed a look of embarrassment. This dress is ingenious. Miss also knows how much effort it took to make it. How can it be repaired well overnight? If you can't repair it, someone else will be able to repair it. I want to see your master. Miss is joking. Our master doesn't know how to sew. How can he repair this wedding gown? He can repair it, and if he can't, just change it. In fact, someone had lent me a helping hand during that torrential rain that night. But after my mother personally ordered my legs to be broken, I was already disheartened. Coming back once, how could I let myself fall into the dust again? The sunset in the evening dyed half the sky. Finally, someone pushed the door open and entered. That person asked me, Do you know what you're doing? I looked at the chess game he had laid out and replied, No matter how seamless the chess game is, there will always be flaws. Even if I enter the game myself, I will win half a move against fate. After returning to the Grand Duke estate from Silk Road Designs, what awaited me were my furious parents. They lovingly held Ruby, whose cheeks were swollen high, in their arms with heartache. A more violent storm and more unpleasant scolding than in my previous life. The clan elder who had watched me grow up couldn't bear it and said, Madam, how can you be sure that Jennifer is not your own daughter? My mother gritted her teeth. I had a difficult labor when I gave birth to Ruby, and I didn't see the child's face at all. That's why someone had the audacity to switching the baby. I keenly grasped the loopholes in my mother's words and questioned, since mother didn't see the newborn child with her own eyes, how can you be sure that your own daughter must have a birthmark on her forehead? But I didn't expect that my mother would disregard our past mother-daughter relationship and slap me in the face without any mercy. I see that you won't give up until you reach the Yellow River. Bring that slave girl up here. Let you reunite with your slave girl mother, just to make up for our 16 years of being mother and daughter. Even though I had experienced it once, I still shed tears of heartache. 16 years, from a toddler who was learning to walk and talk to a graceful young lady who was famous in capital city. Even if my mother and I have no blood relationship, she personally raised me. Doesn't she know my character? My mother is weak and always gets headaches in winter. It was I who served her by her bed every snowy day of every year. I did everything myself and never relied on anyone. How could she forget our 16 years of mother-daughter relationship? A battered and bruised woman in coarse clothes was dragged in front of everyone. She screamed, "Please don't beat me." I admit it. I was the one who switched the miss with my own daughter back then. Ruth is the real young lady of the Grand Duke estate. Don't beat me. Isn't it okay if I atone for my sins with death? The strange woman rushed towards the stone pillar next to her like a madman. Dead men tell no tales. Many people came to the courtyard again, including the midwife, doctor, and maids of that year. They explained the process of how to steal the dragon and replace it with a phoenix, one link after another, without any flaws. In the end, it was my father's side that attracted everyone's attention. I originally thought that the child with the birthmark on her forehead didn't survive, so the madam changed a child to hide it. I didn't expect that the madam was also deceived by villains. My mother was surprised. "You knew a long time ago that Jennifer wasn't the young lady of the Grand Duke estate?" My father closed his eyes in pain. I hugged that child. But over the years, I thought it would be good as long as the madam was happy. The husband and wife hugged each other and cried bitterly with their reunited daughter. A happy family reunion for everyone. My father's ambiguous words, the meaning of forbearance in them, were enough to dispel everyone's doubts. It was also enough to knock me down from a high-ranking noble lady. My respect and reliance on my father over the years made me unable to help but ask for help. "Father, for the sake of our many years of father-daughter relationship." My father, who was known in capital city for loving his wife and daughters, interrupted me coldly with a contemptuous look. How could I have father-daughter sentiments with the daughter of a slave girl? Ruth leaned beside my father, with a look of joy at getting her revenge. She looked proud. "I told you, how long do you think you can be proud of yourself?" I glanced at the embarrassed Ruth after being punished. "Step aside, you have a barn smell on you." Ignoring her flushed face, I looked at my father. Father hates lowly servants so much, but he also had an affair with a slave girl and gave birth to Ruth, this sweeping servant. "Mother, it's in vain that you came from a famous family and learned all the strategies and schemes, but now you are being played around by the person next to your pillow, turning the knife against your own biological daughter." My father's expression changed slightly. "What nonsense are you talking about? Someone quickly dragged this down and beaten to death with sticks." Immediately someone came to pull me, and I almost laughed out of tears. This is the biological father who has loved me for 16 years. Father is exposed his secret, flew into a rage out of humiliation, and wants to kill someone to silence them? My mother was furious. "Stop, let her make it clear, otherwise if her nonsense spreads, will our Grand Duke estate still have any dignity?" Ruth was not as calm as my father, who had been in politics for a long time. She looked flustered. "She's desperate, hurry. Why don't you drag her down and beat her to death?" "Who is desperate?" I pointed at Ruth and said firmly, "She does have the surname and is the daughter of the Grand Duke estate, but it's a pity that she was born to a mistress." Ruth flatly denied. "You're talking nonsense." When my mother saw the panic in Ruth's eyes, she finally became suspicious. "What's the hurry? Let her finish." Everyone was talking about it. The Grand Duke and his wife are famous for their deep love, and there isn't even a concubine in the house. How could there be a mistress? And a mistress who is as old as the eldest miss. This is too absurd. Seeing that the public opinion was in her favor, Ruth was about to speak, but was warned by my father with a glare. My father didn't even look at me, he just smiled apologetically at everyone and spoke in an official tone. "Just now all the clan elders saw that Ruth is the blue blood of the Grand Duke estate, and there are witnesses and physical evidence, which is an ironclad fact. As for this, who is desperately spewing blood, it is a family matter of our Grand Duke estate, and we will naturally deal with it, so you don't need to worry about it. I wanted to refute, but my father kicked me on the knee. It hurts, it really hurts. The pain of my legs being broken by my mother in my previous life surged into my heart. I felt so bitter in my heart that I could hardly speak. At the same time, the servants my father had called surrounded me with sticks. It seemed that as long as I said one more word that I shouldn't say, I would be beaten to death with sticks on the spot. I thought I would never be desperate again, but looking at my silent mother, I still felt chills in my heart. I asked angrily and sadly, why is mother silent? Are you unwilling to face the reality now? Your husband, who you have loved for half your life, is actually a complete scumbag. Your daughter, who you lost and found, is the daughter of a slave you despise. And I was by you. Before I could finish speaking, my father rushed over and whipped me hard on the back with a rattan. My straight back didn't move, because before he could vent his anger, a sharp voice rang out at the door the next second, "Your Majesty is here." 11 Everyone hurriedly saluted, with different expressions in their eyes. My father was suspicious, he was worried that Leo had come to support me. Ruth was overjoyed, she thought Leo had come to justify my identity. After Leo told everyone to stand up, he showed an appropriate surprise on his face. "Minister, why is your house so lively?" My father was high-ranking and powerful, and was also the emperor's teacher, so he didn't take the young emperor seriously and only perfunctorily said, "Your Majesty, tomorrow is the emperor and empress are getting married, it is not in accordance with etiquette for you to come to the Grand Duke estate." Leo touched his nose. "Teacher, I'm just too excited to be able to marry Jennifer, so I came to take a look." "Ha! Didn't I already tell everyone to stand up? Why is Jennifer still kneeling? What's wrong with the servants in your house? Why are they treating Jennifer like this?" Leo seemed to only see me now, and while he asked eagerly, he strode over. When he helped me up, the concern in his eyes seemed genuine. When he saw the wounds on my body, he said angrily, "Jennifer is the future queen. Who dares to hurt her like this?" My father examined the young emperor, seeming to want to figure out what Leo's intention was. Facing the emperor's anger, my father said lightly, "Your Majesty doesn't know, Jennifer is not a daughter of the family." My father pulled Ruby in front of Leo and introduced her. "Ruth is the queen you're going to make tomorrow." Seeing my father's attitude, a trace of displeasure flashed in Leo's eyes, and his tone was cold. "Establishing a queen is a major event for the country. I don't know that there is a reason to change the queen candidate on the eve of the coronation/wedding ceremony. Grand Duke, are you making fun of me, or are you making fun of the people of the world?" My father frowned slightly, disapprovingly said, "They are all daughters of the family, does it matter who your Majesty marries? What's more, Jennifer is about to be expulsion from the family lineage from the clan, wouldn't it be a joke if your Majesty marries her?" Ruth also seemed unable to understand why Leo had two faces in front of and behind people. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she gently tugged at Leo's sleeve, her tone as gentle as water, "Your Majesty." Who knew that Leo would shake off her hand in disgust, and his tone was sincere. "Everyone in Capital City knows that Jennifer and I are childhood sweethearts and have deep affection for each other. My queen will only be Jennifer." Ruby looked at her hand that had been thrown away in disbelief, almost heartbroken. "Your Majesty. How can you treat me like this?" Leo glanced at her, seeming afraid that she would say something she shouldn't, so he ordered, "Seal her mouth." After being gagged and thrown aside roughly, she probably would never understand why Leo, who was still all lovey-dovey in private, would turn his face and be ruthless in a blink of an eye. Actually, I just asked someone to give Leo a handwritten letter. Only one sentence was written on it. The Grand Duke estate falls, and there will be no more powerful ministers. The Emperor's bed can be slept on peacefully. 12 My father ignored the Emperor's majesty and scolded Leo in public like a child in the past. Absurd. If you marry a woman of slave girl origin as queen, how will the people of the world laugh at you? As emperor, do you only care about acting on your own will? Where do you put the royal dignity? In short, Ruth will become your queen, and the emperor and empress can cultivate their relationship slowly. Leo's face was displeased. royal dignity? Teacher still cares about royal dignity? What's more, Jennifer is the real blue blood and deserves to be empress of the world / fit to be a queen. In front of everyone, Leo ordered someone to bring out a beautiful woman. My father and Ruth both changed their expressions when they saw the beautiful woman. I saw the beautiful woman crying, "They want my life." When my mother saw this, how could she not understand? It was clearly something that happened more than 10 years ago, but the evidence was conclusive, and there were witnesses and physical evidence. Sometimes, being too seamless is also a loophole. All of this was a carefully arranged game by her husband, who she trusted the most and had been married to for decades. Leo asked with a mocking expression, "Grand Duke, Miss Ruby, do you recognize this person?" Ruth turned her eyes away and flatly denied, "I have been living in the house for a long time, how can I recognize a woman outside the house?" My father didn't say a word, his face was livid. Obviously, he had realized that this carefully laid out game was about to be ruined by Leo. But he had clearly communicated with Leo in secret, promised Leo various benefits, and started letting Ruth and Leo cultivate their relationship early. I laughed softly in Leo's arms. My father likes to borrow a knife to kill people. I just want to use Leo's hand to help me clarify everything. When my father heard my laughter, he understood everything. "It's you. But how could you know all this?" "Of course father taught me well. Father is good at calculating people's hearts and manipulating power. But have you ever thought that all the hustle and bustle in the world is for profit? All the noise and bustle in the world will naturally be for profit." Ruth scolded angrily, "You." I suddenly raised my hand, and Ruth hurriedly covered her face and turned her head to avoid it. I put my hand down and smiled lightly. 50 slaps in the face are not completely without lessons. Ruth, even if you have the surname, you will never be a winner. The noble ladies of famous families learn not only the arts, but also strategy and calculation, weighing the pros and cons. And you want to be lazy and steal when you are a servant. What ability do you have to compete with me? Looking at Ruth trembling with anger, I laughed and shed tears. There will be no winner in this scheme. Even if Ruth replaces me and becomes the blue blood of the Grand Duke estate, or even becomes the queen, she will still only be a pawn. A pawn to satisfy my father's ambitions. In my previous life, I never thought that the strategies and calculations my father taught me would be used on his wife and daughters. My mother taught me to weigh the pros and cons, so after she learned that my bloodline was doubtful, she decisively abandoned me. Grand Duke, I really admire your ability to obscure the sun and steal the sky and replace the day. Jennifer, don't worry, I will definitely seek justice for you. Looking at Leo, who was now full of me, I wanted to laugh even more. 13 I was born to be the pride of heaven, even the most arrogant noble ladies in the capital would have to give me 3 points. Because the prosperous Grand Duke was the only duke since the founding of the country. Even if I put aside the prosperous Grand Duke estate, my mother came from the extremely prominent the royal family. When the former emperor was young, he fell into trouble due to power struggles and once lived in the Wang family, and had a relationship of adoptive siblings with my mother. The former emperor once pointed at my mother's pregnant belly at a palace banquet and said, "If this child of the Duchess is a boy, he will be the heir of the Grand Duke estate. If it is a girl, she shall be the crown princess." At that time, Leo was just one of the most unremarkable princes of the late emperor. Under the tutelage of his mother, Eleanor, the 3-year-old Leo said innocently, "The Duchess is both talented and beautiful. The Grand Duke estate's young lady must be even more outstanding. If I can marry her, I will treat her like a treasure." The late emperor laughed and scolded, "Ignorant child. Speaking presumptuously about your elders deserves a beating and a punishment." But it was this innocent childish remark that caught the late emperor's attention. And because Leo indeed treated me exceptionally well. Even after he ascended the throne, he defied all opposition and did not establish a queen. He said, "Jenny is still young. I will wait for you to grow up. Only you will be my only wife." Everyone in the capital city knew that the young lady of the Grand Duke estate was the current emperor's sweetheart. Storytellers in the streets and alleys were spreading the tale of our innocent childhood love. Yet, right under my nose, he had an affair with Ruby. If I didn't have memories of my past life, I would never have imagined that Leo was such a heartless person. At this moment, Leo looked at me with confusion. "Jenny, why are you so sad?" "I will throw this scheming mother and daughter into the dungeon right now. As for the Grand Duke and Duchess, you actually intended to secretly replace the future queen. This is the crime of deceiving the Emperor. It truly chills my heart." With his true colors revealed, Leo feigned magnanimity, considering the Grand Duke's contributions to the country and the Duchess being the late Emperor's adopted sister. The Grand Duke estate will have its title stripped, and his wife will be deprived of her noble title. My father glared. "Although I have made mistakes, it is merely a matter of lax family management. Why should it come to this?" Seeing that the pretense was completely gone, my father's tone carried a threat. "I have connections all over the country and also control the army, Your Majesty. Think twice." My father was waiting for the young emperor to lower his head and admit his mistake as before. Who knew Leo would smile unchanged and take out a royal seal from his sleeve? "Teacher, look at this. You are old, so you don't need to worry about the affairs of the army." My father flew into a rage upon seeing this and turned to question me. "Did you steal the royal seal?" He then angrily asked my mother, "Did you tell her the location of the royal seal?" My mother, who had been silent for a long time, finally exploded. "Enough. David. Don't forget how you achieved your high position today. Having a mistress is one thing, but you even dare to bring them into the house and plot against us mother and daughter." Watching the scene of dogs biting each other, I laughed, and a fishy sweetness surged in my throat. The scene before my eyes blurred. Only a few exclamations rang in my ears. "Jenny! Daughter! What's wrong with you?" 14. Looking at my tearful mother, I smiled and spat out a mouthful of blood. "Mother, the poison you put in the incense is really effective." My mother rushed over frantically, incredulous. "How is that possible? The poison was supposed to take effect tomorrow." My mother was afraid that I would ruin Ruby's coronation ceremony, so to ensure nothing went wrong, she poisoned me early. So, in my previous life, even without that torrential rain that caused my wound to become infected and led to a high fever, I would still have died on the day I was supposed to become Empress of the world. My mother's hair was disheveled, and she didn't look like a noble lady at all. Her voice was almost a roar. "I was wrong. Jenny. Forgive me. I only have you, don't leave me." I pushed away her hand that wanted to touch me and said weakly, "Mother, is bloodline that important? So important that a fabricated slander can outweigh 16 years of mother-daughter love?" My mother was filled with remorse. I wrongly trusted the instigation of others. It made me think that my own daughter had lived a miserable life for 16 years, and it made me hate you. I was confused, bewitched. That's why I treated you that way. 16 years of mother-daughter relationship has actually come to a day of mother-daughter turning against each other. All the mistakes are mine. Listening to my mother's regretful crying, my heart was already numb. All the mistakes, no matter whose fault it was, the suffering I endured in these two lives was real. My gaze swept from Leo, who was holding me, to my mother, Ruby, and finally landed on my father. "I don't forgive any of you." The moment before I closed my eyes, my affectionate gaze fell on Leo's face. "I only wish you a long life and find another satisfactory beauty, with many descendants." Leo's crying faded in my ears. Regardless of whether there was a trace of sincerity in Leo's sorrow at this moment, I think he would never find a wife more to his liking than me. We were betrothed in our youth, and my family supported him with all our strength to reach the top smoothly. Our love was as deep as the sea, unswerving until death, and I died in the most beautiful years. 15. I heard that after the coronation ceremony was cancelled, Your Majesty did not attend court for 3 months. Your Majesty was young and playful and often did not attend court, which was not a big deal. But it was the first time he had locked himself in the palace, not eating or drinking. Ethan teased me. "It seems Your Majesty has some true feelings for you." I didn't even lift my head. What true feelings or not, as long as it doesn't ruin our plans. Ethan sighed, to die full of resentment, yet to be so deeply in love with him. Such a beauty trap. If someone used it on me, even if I was deceived and lost weight, I would not regret it. I ignored Ethan's implication and placed a chess piece on the board. It's been a month since I faked my death. Your Majesty and the people of the Grand Duke estate are not fools, they will find out sooner or later. Especially since the royal seal Your Majesty has is fake. The disaster in the south has been going on for several years, and it has become more serious recently. If Your Majesty waits until he uses the royal seal to mobilize troops to suppress the refugees. Ethan restrained the cynicism on his face and gradually became serious. Don't worry, I have arranged everything. But I just want Your Majesty to find out that the royal seal in his hand is fake. Jenny, those who are unfaithful should also taste the bitterness of being betrayed. I took out the royal seal and placed it in front of Ethan. After it's done, I want to be queen. I don't care if you have 3,000 royal concubines, the future imperial heir must be under my name. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You don't trust me that much? You can keep the royal seal. From now on, you will have the final say on the mobilization of troops in the world. I will not have 3,000 royal concubines, and the future prince will definitely be born to you. I missed you once, and I will not miss you a second time. I don't ask you to trust me, but life is long, and I will slowly prove that Jenny, your vision is still good. I was silent. If it weren't for the memories of my previous life, I probably wouldn't have believed that Ethan, whom I had only met a few times, was deeply in love with me. In my previous life, when I was dying, Ethan rushed over and held an umbrella for me in the torrential rain, anxiously asking a doctor for me. He said, wait for the doctor, and wait for me, and live. I am willing to hold an umbrella for you in the future storms. I just said dejectedly, if you really want to do something for me, please allow me to die. But after I died, Ethan collected my body and even asked to marry me in the afterlife. Because of this, Leo was furious. Since he is so affectionate, let him go with her. Who knew Ethan would take it seriously and go to the Yellow Springs with me? In my memory, there are not many memories of Ethan. I only remember a few times that he was a gentle and smiling big brother. But at that time, my heart was full of Leo. I held Ethan's hand, which he wanted to touch but retracted. Do you think that I trusted the wrong person and have been afraid of everything ever since? I, Jenny, will always have the courage to start over. 16 powerful officials are in power, and the young emperor is estranged. Leo thought that if he suppressed my father, he could be an emperor with real power. But over the years, he has been smooth sailing all the way, relying on the support of the Grand Duke estate. This was the first time he personally handled the government, but what he took over was not the peaceful and prosperous world he imagined. Over the years, my father had monopolized power, appearing noble and upright on the surface, but in reality, he formed cliques and excluded dissidents. His subordinates even more greedily accepted bribes and oppressed the people. Coupled with the recent disasters, the people were already filled with resentment. In the past, under my father's iron fist, it could still be suppressed. This time, my father, who was vengeful, deliberately granted power according to Leo's wishes, wanting the young emperor to see the world and then rely on him again. The refugees, who had already formed a large scale, were unstoppable and marched all the way into the capital city. Realizing that something was wrong, my father rushed into the palace overnight and forced Leo to take out the royal seal. Leo reluctantly took out the royal seal, and both of them were dumbfounded. At this moment, Ethan led his troops into the weakly defended capital city in the name of "Purge the Court." When Leo saw me again, his eyes were bloodshot, and he questioned, "Jenny, have you been lying to me all along? What is real? Have you ever had a trace of sincerity towards me? Do you know that giving me a fake royal seal would put me in a dangerous situation?" I just looked at him calmly. I'm returning these words to you. Do you know what situation I would be in if I confirmed my identity as a fake daughter that day? Leo looked at my hand and Ethan's hand holding each other and broke down. But didn't I save you too? What did he promise you? Come here, I can give you the position of queen. I sneered. give it to me. Without me, Leo, how could you stand out from the late emperor's many princes and sit on the position of emperor? Leo, you must be clear that I don't want you anymore. Leo looked at the sharp blade passing through his body, unable to close his eyes in death. Ethan carefully wiped the blood splattered on my hands and said with heartache, "Why do you have to do this dirty work yourself?" I looked down at Leo's scattered eyes and lightly opened my lips, "Purge the court, and the emperor can also be purged." The day Ethan ascended the throne was also the coronation